Hey, how's it going, everybody? Let's cover the release of the Attributes Manager. There's a couple different items in this update, and the first one is around the attributes. I made a video previously kind of showing off the beginnings of the features, but this one will kind of comprehensively cover it. And then we're also going to show off some quick Alpine components that are just baked into the child theme that you can call in directly in the editor to give you a starting point on any complex components that use Alpine. I just really wanted to give like a ground zero, especially for things like accordions and tabs, really anything in that area that you'd be required to write some type of logic. If you've ever used platforms like Bricks or Quickly, where you can just click the accordion, but then you have like really finite control over what you can change, this kind of just opens up the door so that you can have access to the code and you can change whatever you want. You can have GPT change it, or Claude, or whoever you want, AI related. And that way you really have that granular control to do whatever you want specifically with that component. Because as we all know, accordions, tabs, things like that can all be used in diverse ways, not just specifically for a tab looking item or an accordion looking item. So anyways, let's dive into it. So first off, I'm inside the main. I'm just going to go ahead and call in an Alpine component. And it's very simple. You just type Alpine, and you can see that right here, there's the /static. There's also a /dynamic. The difference being that static is just Alpine. Dynamic will eventually be Alpine and Twig together, so that you have like different dynamic component options. For example, pulling in a list of FAQs from the FAQ post type. Stuff like that, just to give you like starting points in the dynamic area as well for Twig. Because if you're using prompting or you're writing your own code, GPT understands both of these technologies, so it's not like you're going to have a difficult time explaining the context of your situation, especially when you can just share the data from the data inspector right with GPT so it can write the proper template. So I'm going to start off here, and we're just going to call in a simple accordion. So like that, we have an accordion on the screen. All the code just pops up. And I'm just going to do Command P to refresh the tree and make sure all the elements populate on the side. The reason I did it that way is because I didn't want it to automatically populate right off the bat. I wanted to make sure that's the component you want before you actually refresh the tree. So if you're looking to just do any type of refresh, Control P, Command P, depending on Mac or Windows, and automatically all the elements will show up in the tree on the side. If you guys want it to happen automatically, just let me know, and I can always just re-render the tree. So right here, I can see that I have X data on the top component, and then I have some other items going on here, like another X data here for the logic between the component and everything that's happening in between the items and attributes. So I can just go ahead and start clicking around the tree, and you'll notice that in the resources panel now, there is attributes, and it gives you a count of the total number of attributes. It's a little difficult to read at the moment. I haven't really put a lot of effort into styling this, but it's just to kind of indicate, yes, there is attributes. But right here, if I open this up, click into the editor, you now have a plain attributes manager that allows you just to freely edit the attributes as you want. And you can just do it all in here, or you can select an individual attribute if you just want to focus on that specific attribute and make changes. So as I go back over into here, I'm just going to type in some random attribute, like something is here. And you can notice that automatically, if I go back into the X data, it is updated here as well. So they stay in sync with one another, no matter really what you're doing. The other thing is you can easily edit the attribute key just by clicking edit. And let's just say I change this to new. Hit save, and now it is new. If I open the population or the drop down, you can see X new is now the option. If I go into here, it's now put back to the bottom because it's the most recent attribute. And you can actually edit it right here on the spot. The other thing is you can just go ahead and add attributes really easily. Just click add, let's say X data, and I'm just going to click add. It takes you automatically to the tab so that you can start editing your attribute. And right this, we have live something. And if I go back into the plain classes or plain attribute editor, you can see right here, it shows up at the bottom. Now you'll notice inside the plain attributes that each one has a -- delimiter. And that's just to help the system understand that each one of these is an attribute. So if you were to add attributes via the plain attributes, you would just have to essentially go in here and do -- and then just add your attribute. So X on click equals alert, hello world. And just like that, you've created an attribute on your component. If I go back up to the top, you'll see that it pops right open, and there we go. It's that simple, but it's a very easy process for managing attributes on the parent component that you have selected. So you don't have to need to traverse up the tree and constantly edit things or look for a button or go 5 tiers deep in order to find the attributes. Because I know for me, whenever I've used other platforms, whether it's Webflow, Framer, Quickly, or Bricks, you're constantly diving deep into the editor in order to find and access attributes, which is a complete pain, especially if you're using a platform like, or you're using technologies like Alpine or HTMX or whatever it is to accomplish whatever you're trying to do. In both of those situations, you're always running into that really troublesome dive into the editor trying to look for the attributes. Then once you find them, can the attributes handle dynamic data? Can they handle, do they have the space to actually edit the attribute? I know like with Xdata, I'm constantly writing logic in there. I just want to just pop it open and start editing. Inside Bricks, for example, I have to have another screen VS Code, write out my Xdata, or I'd have to create a script tag and then make a function that calls in for the component state. And it's very annoying. It's just extra steps, and it's like gatekeeping specific features of the platform. In this case, with this editor, you can actually use a twig inside the Alpine. So like, for example, if I wanted to go into the Xdata, so let's edit this back and go here and save, I can now, essentially, let's say I wanted to add posts to here and I had posts as a query. I could just do this and essentially I could just do, posts. And all the posts in the array would be available for the actual Alpine component. So you can use Twig and Alpine together if you want to pass server-side data to the client side. Situations like this might come up, for example, if you wanted to have like Ajax scrolling, or anything specifically where both interactions are required with dynamic data. You have to also think of things like accordions. Like, for example, each one of these items, let's say you're querying a post type and showing each one. You want to give each one a unique ID, let's say the post type or the post ID for each FAQ. Well, you can do that because you can essentially loop in, call in each an accordion item, and then give each of them a unique ID based on the post ID that you're pulling from, giving you a really nice ecosystem for working with dynamic data. It opens up a lot of capabilities that other platforms just really struggle with. I know that in Bricks particularly, you can do this. It's just, once again, you're just dealing with having to constantly go back into the attribute panel and make edits in a very small space. I know that was my biggest issue when using Bricks, is just constantly having to access attributes or writing a function specifically around it. The other thing is that around the Alpine components, I did include most basic starting points. So for example, I'm just going to go up into main and I'm just going to delete this out, just to kind of give you guys a preview of everything going on here. I'm just going to close this out. All I have to do is, like I said before, Alpine/static. You have accordion, carousel, and you'll notice with some of them, carousel, for example, it pulls in the script tag for smooth scroll. That's just what's used for this specific carousel. If I go in here and refresh, everything starts to populate, and now you have full control over the carousel, and you can kind of get to town styling it or writing out custom logic for it. I highly recommend, if you're doing this, to pull your scripts local. It's just there because we are calling in the component. If you're using WP Codebox or any other snippets manager, you can do it through that. I know if you're from the dplugins ecosystem and you're using something like Swiss Knife, if you want to, or their advanced script organizer, you can actually just on-queue things directly from there. Once this does split into a plugin, of course, you can just on-queue from the child theme. I wouldn't recommend that right now just because we're pushing out these alpha updates to the child theme. And as things mature, you will be able to do that in the near future. But for now, I'm just calling it in via the CDN, and almost everything that's using a script tag has the same way. So if I do Alpine static and I go into some other one, like for example, the tooltip, you can see that it's actually bringing in Tippy or Poppers.js and Tippy. So like if I were to actually go in here and refresh real quick, and I hover over it, and now I have tooltips. Same thing for anything that you really want. I plan on always including what the technologies are specifically for that component, because I know as a user of other platforms, for example, like quickly, when I pull in a carousel or slider and it's using Swiper, I want to modify Swiper directly. I don't want to have to deal with what that developer has set up. Because it just imposes limitations. So in this case, you have a very nice, great starting point for how to use the component. Like everything is set up Alpine way. But you can also just go in here and start editing anything that you want to do inside the DOM. Everything's been pretty optimized in the fact that these scripts should defer. They will not impact loading speed as much as possible, of course. And every library I kind of choose, it's typically a lightweight library. There's always a heavier, more high fidelity option. For example, when I start introducing things with animations inside the editor, I know that I'll probably get a lot of comments around GSAP. GSAP will always be an available option. I use GSAP all the time, but AnimeJS, for example, is 6 kilobytes. So why wouldn't I put that as a default and then make a GSAP alternative to it? So I really try to take performance to the forefront when thinking about these things. And, a couple things that you can just do just to help performance is just make sure that you pull your scripts local. If you want to load them directly from the CDN, 99% of the time, especially on small and mid-sized sites, it's really not going to impact anything that you're doing performance-wise unless you're tying up the initial loading threads of the DOM, and then you're going to get a page execution warning, so on and so forth. But these components in particular are made to actually be performance-friendly, so make sure you take advantage of them and use them. You can always just, if you ever want to talk to AI about them, you can easily just copy out the component, go into the AI editor, and start prompting away for what exactly you want. It knows what poppers is, it knows what tippy is, and I made sure that each one of these components has technologies that AI understands, because I know that not everybody is familiar with every single API, and I really wanted to open up the opportunity for not only to use those APIs because they're extremely powerful, but also for you to learn them, because that's one of the main missions of Agnostic Blocks, is that while you might use AI and leverage it for yourself, and that's a good thing, the more that you look at the code and the core fundamentals, the more that you will learn. You'll learn how to execute without AI's help and prompt less and less. So that's really the goal here, is that as much as it is a great tool for building, it's a great tool for learning how to code and understand code, because as we move into an AI future, understanding the fundamentals of development and design is going to be a critical part in your skills growing over time. Because prompt engineering with a person who can't prompt or understand code isn't very useful. So make sure you keep that in the forefront as you're learning things, especially around like how to style stuff. One of the big reasons I recommend Tailwind, for example, is that GPT just knows Tailwind so well. I've used lots of other frameworks, ACSS, Core, a lot of traditional ones like Bootstrap and different variants that have come out over the years, and all of them are great. I have no problems with any traditional framework. I just like the Tailwind is all right in the editor, and I feel like it's the best experience at the moment for Livecanvas because it's such an editor-driven tool. I do plan on including things in next releases or upcoming releases that allow you to really dial into style sheet management, page level, and global level, and really helping you segment out style sheets based on specific components to give you a really more friendly way to write CSS within the tool. Because I know that for me, I don't use Tailwind on every single project. I switch all over the place. And honestly, I wanted to make some really great content around automatic CSS and core framework. And part of doing that is making sure there's a great CSS experience. So I plan on definitely doing that in the near future as well, just for those who enjoy those frameworks, want to use them, or use traditional ones like Bootstrap, but need to customize it or write the theming. I know that when I use Bootstrap in particular, I'm always writing theme level code. I'm always doing a lot of SCSS inside of there, creating my own individual Bootstrap theme, like many of the pre-made and purchased themes that you purchase off of any marketplace or use on shuffle.dev. Those have a lot of custom SCSS in them. And, if you were to bring them into Livecanvas right now, it'd be very difficult to edit them without leaving the Livecanvas experience. So that's really at the forefront of my mind as I move forward, is just bringing these experiences into a single IDE, which is what this is. It's a low-code IDE for WordPress. That's smart and helps you out along the way. So anyways, I look forward to your feedback. If you have any questions, feel free to shout out inside the Discord. If you're trying to get access to Agnostic Blocks, just join the Discord. It's free. It's in there. You do need Livecanvas, PHP 8.2 or higher. And if you're using Tailwind, you need Yavi Soul. Highly recommend ACF because that's what I use for custom fields. But you can use pretty much any custom field manager you want. There's just some unique ways to do things in each one, but I plan on making that also easier in upcoming releases. So anyways, this is Daniel, and I look forward to hearing from you. Talk soon.